Welcome to Finding Joy. I am so glad that you were here today. I want to start today with a question. And I'll warn you, even as I was thinking about this earlier, I was taken back myself, even though it was my own question. What if what you think matters today in this moment at this particular pin prick in time doesn't really matter that much at all? Sit with it for a second. I wonder what you were thinking right before you pressed play. What was running through your mind? For me, like many of you, it's usually what needs to get done, what's next on my list. Maybe there's a feeling underneath all of that, a low hum of urgency, anxiety, a slight tension. Can I get enough done? Am I doing the right things? And it's not that what needs to get done today isn't important, but does it really ultimately matter? And so just stick with me here because you're like, Leona, I can't quit my day job. I'm not even suggesting that. But recently, I've found myself getting caught up in all the things that I want to get done. I mean, that's a day-to-day thing, but it's also, I want to finish a book. I want to get this podcast into the world. And just the other morning, I sat down and I felt overwhelmed. I hesitate to be this transparent, but some of the sticky notes sitting in front of me, the reminders on my phone, all the things I coach my clients around to be a little bit more strident, to stay productive and stay on task. I had fallen into my own little storm of to-do lists and things that needed to get done. And it just reminded me again, we fall into these patterns of, I got to do this, I got to get that done. And our brains are built around some very basic operating structures. They love getting things off a to-do list. Give them a to-do list and they get a dopamine hit and it frees up more space to be present and available. And in theory, that sounds lovely, but in practice, that rarely happens in a day and the age that we live in. Our brains also form patterns based on repeated behaviors, and we get a little hit of dopamine, little cookie for our brain that helps weld these behaviors into place. And over time, because we become walking to-do lists, checking things off as we go, and often rather mindlessly. Check off, get a dopamine hit. Do more, check off more. It starts to feel like a bit of a slot machine. And there's something compelling and even addictive about this way of living. And so we stay. We pull the lever, hoping that eventually all of the goodness we're working so hard for will come tumbling out. Only rarely does that happen in a way that really matters, in a way that brings meaning and a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And so we need to go deeper. We need to go beyond the to-do lists. And we need to live below the brain's natural, most easily accessed working model. And we need to be more intentional. We need to stop and ask ourselves, as I check off my to-do list, what actually matters to me? What makes my life meaningful and fulfilling? And it is so rarely about a to-do list. I call it, it's a to-be list. So I first came across this distinction when I was working with my first coach 15 years ago, and I was getting my business off of the ground. I was running another business at the same time, but I was putting more attention into my coaching practice. And at the time, I mean, that seems like a good goal, right? So I've got one business, I'm working inside of that business. I was a single parent, raising my children and giving some time and effort into something that I had, just invested in education-wise as a professional coach. And I was swamped, overwhelmed by all the things I needed to do. And she said, what about to be? And I was like, that's nice. For you, maybe. I did pause for a sec because at the time she had overcome 4th-stage breast cancer. And so I took what she was saying a little bit more seriously than I might have from somebody else. And she said, what about a to-be list, Leona, and not just a to-do list? What if you went from purely survival mode to just getting things done to what is it that feels meaningful? What is it that matters to you? I felt like it was almost a privilege to think that way. Like, oh, isn't that nice for you? But I don't have a silver spoon in my mouth or, lottery funds in the bank. So that's not a possibility for me. But she had me sit with it. And I thought, yeah, part of it, I had to peel back the layers of what I had been taught, that when you sit or when you're not doing something productive, your value drops. That hit. But ultimately, what brought meaning for me? And so my goal became, in addition to my to-do list, was my how did I want to be list. What mattered? Slowing down, spending more time with my kids, turning off my computer, spending some less time working and focus on those things, thinking about what did legacy mean to me? And that didn't feel that far off. My mom died when I was 22. She was 49. I inherited the same disease that she died with. And I thought, yeah, we get this one precious life, this kick at the can. And how do I want to live it? So I started to take on this idea of a to-be list and, to call it a to-be list, but it was about being more intentional with my life, understanding why I was here, what mattered to me. And then when I read some work by Arthur Brooks has the job I want. He's a happiness and meaning researcher. And if you haven't read his books or listened to any of his podcasts, I cannot recommend him highly enough. And he has so much collateral on what it helps to have us live a meaningful and fulfilling life. But I love the 3 things that I read recently. And he talks about the 3 things. So this can be the kind of the foundation or the bowl that holds those other pieces of our to-be list. And it can give us some great opportunities to think about how we want to be in our lives. And so people that focus on creating more meaning, which is what fosters happiness, and I would say fosters joy, is they consider 3 things: coherence, purpose, and significance. So we'll just take each one at a time. Coherence is our sense of why life unfolds as it does. It might include beliefs, spirituality, or a broader framework of making sense of our experiences, especially the ones that don't go the way we planned. And spending time considering this matters deeply. It becomes part of an ethos, a way of moving through the world. And here's something that stops me in my tracks every time I share it. Researcher Lisa Miller has found that having some sense of why life unfolds as it does can bolster mental health and serve as a buffer against depression, even more than any traditional mental health interventions. So that's a big deal. And I'm going to put some journaling questions in the show notes, but what's the sense of why life unfolds as it does? What are your beliefs around that? Maybe it's a spiritual belief that does not have to be religious. It could be even just, I believe things happen for a reason. I believe that nothing's wasted. I believe the universe is kind and working for my good. Those resilient anchors can make a huge difference in how we live our life, a life that's fulfilling and not just a life that we survive and we are a victim of. I'll put Lisa Miller's book as well in the show notes so you can take a look at it. The second is purpose. Why are you here? What are your values? What impact do you want to have? Not just in your career, but in your life too, in the places that you show up in and the people you love. This is a lot of what I do in my coaching work also, is helping people understand their purpose. What is it? And third is significance. How do you want to make a difference? This could be a theme that runs underneath everything you do. Perhaps it's something like, I want to make people feel seen and loved. I want to live a life filled with deep appreciation for what is. And so this goes deeper than achievement. It's part of a life ethos. And this is what matters. And so when you consider significance, what's your own answer to that? What's the thread that runs through the work you do, how you show up with your family that matters? And for me, my ethos is really, I want to help people be unapologetically themselves. And you know that this podcast is called Finding Joy. And to me, joy is a North Star. It helps us understand, guides our way and understand who we are. It's also like a compass that can guide us on our way. And for me, what I started to notice is that joy would get sparked in me, and it became like that compass for me, helping me know what my purpose was, because every time I coached somebody and they came closer to their truth, and they would get this like spark of joy, and I would get this spark of joy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is joy. This is the essence of who they are. And when I could support them in owning who they are and being who they are unapologetically, wherever they were, at work or at home, there was tremendous joy. And so that joy showed their alignment. That's their North Star. There's also the compass that leads them in various places. How do I know who I am? I feel into that alignment and I move in that direction. And when I feel out of alignment, I move out of those places. Maybe I say no, I set boundaries. And for me, it made me realize whenever I bump into somebody and they have discovered their truth and they can bring that into the world, then I feel joy. And so joy started to light the way to my purpose, to my sense of significance. So even if that's seeing somebody in the grocery store line up and I acknowledge something that I see in them and I see them light up. I was in Marshall's the other day and the checkout person was singing along with the song. And I said, "Oh, I love your singing. What a beautiful voice." And she said, "Oh, well, well," and she sort of stammered through it. And I said, "No, it's really beautiful. You have vibrato and everything." And she said, "Thank you. It just makes me happy. And it's so important to be happy." So those little opportunities for me to see people's truth and reflect that back is what sparks joy for me. And that's kind of a thread that weaves through, for me, significance and purpose. And so you can get curious about what it is for you as well. And so when we think about doing what matters and living a life that matters, and even if your to-do list ties into those things that matter, that's where we find the happiness and meaning. And that's ultimately where we find joy. So those three things: coherence, purpose, and significance. Spend some time sitting with them, journaling through them, or talking about them with someone who matters to you. And the big invite is focus not just on your to-do list, but on your to-be list. And may you find yourself living from that deeper sense of truth and integrity. And take your time. This isn't a process that's figured out over Saturday coffee. But as you do invest in living a more intentional life, what I can promise you is that you will experience more joy. Joy in the sense of the emotion, joy kind of tied in with happiness, awe, that joy that you feel that when you're in alignment with yourself, when you live into the acronym of joy that I use often of just owning you, you will feel that greater sense of purpose, significance, coherence, and that greater sense of meaning. And so before we go, these are the questions. They'll also be in the show notes, but coherence. What helps me make sense of my life, especially when things don't go the way I planned? What beliefs or ways of seeing the world give me steadiness and meaning? For me, that's a sense of spirituality, that there's something greater than me that I call love, that ties things together, that uses things for good. I believe that there's nothing ever wasted. Even a really difficult experience can be used for good things, perhaps to help others, to be more empathic. Under purpose, what am I here to give, contribute, or create? For me, that's coaching, facilitating, writing, supporting people. And the next question, which values do I most want to live and reflect? And I just did something in my online program called The Joy Journey. I'll include some of the information here as well. And we explored our values. Most people have about 10 to 12 values and it helps them feel fulfilled. But one of the things that we do in the work of Brené Brown is kind of boiling them down and thinking about what are the 2 values that we live by. This ties into a piece of legacy also. And so my 2 top values are love and courage. Love includes sub-values of honor, respect, kindness, and compassion. And courage is doing hard things even when you're afraid. And I want to live a life where those are reflected. And if I thought, when I think about my legacy, if somebody said, "Oh, she loved so intentionally and so intensely, she was so courageous," I would feel like I had done my work here. And so thinking about what are those 2 values that really tie into who you are, how they light your way in the dark, make hard decisions, but also they tie into a deep sense of legacy that you would be proud to be known by those 2 attributes. And under significance, how do I want people around me to feel because of how I lived? And what kind of difference would feel deeply meaningful to me, even if no one applauded? For me, that's shining that light. Or I said to a client the other day, I just hold up a mirror to your goodness, your truth, what makes you you, your magic, your secret sauce. That is pure joy for me. If I could do that all day, even to the grocery store clerk or somebody in a parking lot, I would feel my life was well lived, even if no one else noticed it. And so there you have it. Set aside that to-do list. Take some time journaling through these questions or talking through these questions. If you're a leader, these would be great things to talk about in your one-on-ones to get to know your people on your team better, a way to really help them live into their potential in a deep and meaningful way. You want engaged employees? Start having conversations like this. I hope what you heard today was helpful. Thank you so much for spending time with me on the Finding Joy podcast. And this is one of many conversations that I'm going to have about living more intentionally. And I can't wait to continue this with you. Before I let you go, I want to tell you something I've created. If you're a woman who tends to overextend themselves, overthink, am I doing enough? Am I okay? Have I disappointed anybody? Or over-accommodates. And if you're tired of that, you feel like sometimes you're shrinking, shape-shifting, contorting, you fall into the 3 Ps, people-pleasing, perfecting, performing, all trying to make somebody else happy, I have something that can help. It's an online program called The Joy Journey. This is the space to come back to yourself. I share tools and techniques and connect about 10 times a month in a way that's just tiny little joy spots that help you connect back to the truth of who you are so you can just own you and bring your magic back to the world. This is a place to stop disappearing and start owning who you are. If that's something you're curious about, take a look in the show notes. I've left some information below. In the meantime, lots of love to you all. Thank you for your time and energy that you put into living an intentional life. The world is a better place with you and your authenticity and your wholeheartedness in it.